wildfires interrupt missions. The smoke, the heat, the danger. Missions start a fire. We're there to put it out, or if we can grow it to prevent a future wildfire. So there's less mission downtime, lost money, time, effort. Just makes the warfighter that much more prepared and ready. Yeah, my name is Brett Williams. I'm the module lead for the Eglin Wildland Support Module as part of the Air Force Wildland Fire Branch. The primary mission on an Air Force base, a fort, is the military mission, testing and training for the warfighter. And so, unlike land management agencies whose primary mission is land management on a military installation is necessary but secondary.
So the role of wildland fire management on military installations is one, for mission support. We burn primarily around ranges that have a high chance of catching fire when they do different missions. And so that supports their ability to continue the mission. If a fire does start, we are able to let them continue using the range without us having to go out there immediately, shut down the mission. The mission tempo here is heavy. We went from somewhere around 5,000 missions just as small as 5 years ago. Now we're up over 20,000.
Very strong prescribed fire mission. We attempt to burn 90,000 acres per year to achieve about a 3-year fire return interval on average. That takes about 90 to 100 burn days per year. And then additionally, we respond to 50 to 75 wildfires per year. Yeah, there's some unique challenges working around military facilities, and it's important that off-site resources incoming realize that they may be required to interface with a number of military units. It could be the installation fire department. It could be explosive ordnance disposal units.
So coming into an installation as an outside resource is make sure you get a good briefing and make sure you have good points of contact, especially with security forces and those who are charged with security of the base. When in doubt, always ask questions.
So things that a new firefighter needs to ask being in-briefed coming to one of our installations. They need to ask about safety. What are the safety concerns? Where can I operate safely on a fire? We like to provide maps so that you know, or firefighters know, where they can and can't be and the rules of engagement for anything from firing, holding, mop-up. Definitely a UXO brief. We require about a 7-minute video that everyone that comes on the installation needs to watch. Need to ask about comm. Communications is a little different on military installations. Radio frequency management and authorization is tightly controlled. So only approved frequencies can be used. And at Eglin specifically, we have a dual comm system, so getting some familiarity with our UHF land mobile radios. Unique safety issues we have on military installations, whether that's unexploded ordnance, whether it's training objectives, things like foxholes, concertina wire, barbed wire, simulators that could flare up, troop movement and movement of large vehicles. There's a lot of heavy equipment moving around on military lands, so being aware and heads up of that additional safety risk.
Ask in the briefings, ask anything that you need to know. Don't be afraid to ask. There is no dumb questions, especially in the firefighting world or wildland fire, and working around installations where you've got other hazards on top of it, such as the unexploded ordnances, closed area missions, stuff like that. So the one thing I would say is if it's a question to you and it isn't covered in your in-briefing, please feel free to ask it.
UXO and wildland fire operations is a significant concern for fighting fire or lighting fire on Department of Defense lands, both because they may or may not be visible. They may be subsurface, which could be an issue for ground disturbance if you're establishing a fire break. And then surface UXO is obviously an issue if it's got a live warhead or live round. A lot of those are triggered by heat, and so knowing where these areas are that have not been cleared by our explosive ordnance disposal units, getting briefings from explosive ordnance disposal units, and training. We do a lot of training on identifying UXO, knowing where we can and can't be on the installation. So some of the unique dangers or hazardous fuels that could be encountered on a military installation include a lot of the incendiary devices, whether it's for us a lot of times training rounds, blank rounds, but there are live rounds and simulators. There's white phosphorus. There's some areas that may have depleted uranium. So you need to get a good briefing on where you're going, what you're doing, to avoid UXO or give us a good buffer in case the unexpected happens and we get a detonation during fire operations.
So you need to be careful about where you're driving, where you're walking. You know, is the area a no suppression area where we cannot suppress fire at all? Is it an area with restricted suppression where you can do a limited type of suppression with maybe water? So that's a challenge when we have wildfires, especially because then you have to, or the firefighters have to, come in and devise a plan to stop the fire or contain the fire to roads or certain areas that are not UXO.
A lot of the risk will be mitigated with your inboarding and your briefing. There will be certain areas where you may not be able to actually physically go because the risk is too great. So it's important to get briefed on those, and then when there's a minimal UXO risk where you're allowed to access that area, it's just important to remember, if you didn't bring it out there, don't pick it up.
So some of the unique heavy equipment and vehicles you could run into on a military installation include Humvees, armored personnel carriers, large transports, obviously tanks, not as much on Eglin, but other installations. And so large vehicles that take up a lot of the roadway. So as you pass these vehicles, it's recommended to pull off to the side of the road, or at least get one tire in the median or the shoulder in order to just give them wide berth. A Humvee is a lot wider than your typical vehicle, and they take up a lot of the road. So that's one thing, is while you're passing to and from a burn site, and sometimes they show up on the boundaries of a burn unit or a wildfire, just not knowing that you're there. So just being aware you may run into any of these things at any given time. They're also loud and noisy, so if you're working with them, around them for significant periods of time, you want to wear ear protection, obviously. They kick up a lot of dust, so just breathing that dust can be a hazard, as well as visibility. They may not hear or see that you're there, so just giving them wide berth and flagging them down, at least letting them know, hey, I'm here, and safe passage.
When working around heavy equipment, especially non-wildland fire related equipment such as tanks or light armored vehicles, it's important to remember you may not have communications with them, and they may not understand what you're trying to do, and you probably don't understand what they're trying to do. So probably the best course of action is to steer clear.
There are a number of unique challenges and differences you'll find with radio communications on military lands. The military uses a large number of frequencies across the base. They've got, like I said, 6 to 50 missions going on daily, each with their own unique assigned and approved frequencies. So frequency management is key on a military installation. So we have prior approved frequencies those are the only frequencies we can use in our fire operations. So we ask crews that are incoming to not use squirrel nets, to not use crew nets channels, to clone to our radio channels and only use those approved frequencies. The other thing you may find, at least on a lot of Air Force bases, is a UHF land mobile radio trunking system. It's a little different than your VHF frequencies, UHF land mobile radios. Typically they'll be checked out to you separately, so you'll have that dual comm system, and that's the radio system that all the units on base use, whether it's security forces, fire department, mission control and range control. They all work off that common land mobile radio system. So it's real important that you receive a briefing on that system, how to use it, and not transmitting any sensitive information over those comm systems is very important as well.
New and visiting firefighters should definitely be paying attention to the communication side of things. Make sure that you have redundant communication systems in place, because there are some RF generating equipment that you may come across and your radios may not work.
Inquire about the radio frequencies. Make sure that, if you're going to somewhere, that you operate on their frequencies. Working on military lands is a real unique thing. It's probably good when you're communicating over the radio, whatnot. Just give some discretion to the mission that's going on. Be leery of what you put over that radio is being monitored.